And then the plasma conduit just exploded, Elias said, gesturing wildly with a half-eaten ration bar in one hand, crumbs trailing like stardust. I'm talking full-on boom, sparks, drama. I saw my life flash before my eyes and realized it was mostly vending machines and unpaid repair bills. The maintenance bay of the Kestrel's wake was unusually quiet for midday orbit cycle. Most of the crew were either asleep, on duty rotations, or avoiding Elia's ward, who had earned a reputation for accidentally fixing things by breaking them first. The only one listening now was Loop, his floating assistant module, a small orb-shaped bot with blinking blue lights and a passive-aggressive tone setting stuck on mildly disappointed librarian. You are embellishing again, Loop said. The conduit vented minor gas pressure. You sneezed and fell backward into the cargo rack. Details, Elias muttered, poking at a console screen that refused to acknowledge his fingerprint. You really know how to murder a good story, Loop. I try my best. Elias sighed, tossing the empty ration wrapper at a disposal chute. It missed. The ship had felt tense lately. Maybe it was the proximity to the Kalorian fleet. Maybe it was the fact that no one seemed to know what exactly was being negotiated. All he knew was that every human on board had been told to act diplomatic, which, in Elia's case, meant don't talk much and never touch anything without gloves. He left the bay with a diagnostic scanner in one hand and a faulty grav stabilizer coil slung over his shoulder, making his way through the pristine silver corridors of the diplomatic cruiser. Everything on this ship gleamed, too clean, too perfect, like it had never seen a drop of engine grease in its life. Probably because it hadn't. Most systems were run by autonomous sub-AIs, the real work hidden behind panels that didn't even open unless you had 10 levels of clearance and a smug accent. Loop hovered beside him. You are not authorized in Deck 5. I'm not going to Deck 5. You are holding equipment tagged for Deck 5. Coincidence, Elias said, turning left instead of right, pretending like he wasn't trying to sneak into the restricted section where the human and Kalorian cross-training simulations were held. Besides, I heard the Kalorians have an impressive zero-G gym. Good for, diagnostics. Loop pulsed yellow. You plan to diagnose the elliptical trainer. I'm a man of many talents. He stepped into the access corridor leading to the simulation halls and paused. The lights were dimmed, the air unusually cool. The doors ahead hissed open, unauthorized entry overridden, probably thanks to that backdoor patch he'd installed last week, just in case. As he stepped inside the chamber, the quiet hit him like a vacuum. Then he saw her. A lone figure sat on the edge of a balance bench, one leg outstretched, wrapped in a compression brace that glowed faintly with medical gel lines. She wore a Kalorian training uniform, minimalist black with silver trim, and her long hair shimmered like poured mercury, tied back into a complex braid that framed her ears. Long ears. Elegant and curved, almost elvish, twitching slightly with every movement. Elias froze. She was very clearly injured, also very clearly not expecting company. She looked up, pale violet eyes narrowed. You are not cleared for this room. Neither are broken stabilizers, Elias said quickly, hoisting the coil as if it were his passport. But here we are. She blinked slowly. Explain. Maintenance check, routine, interdepartmental. Gravimetric regulation compliance. Standard stuff. He dropped the coil and offered a grin that had gotten him kicked out of 3 repair crews and 1 poker game. You look like you could use some help. Her expression didn't change, but her fingers tightened slightly around her knee. I'm fine. You're fine, Elias echoed, crouching a bit closer. That brace says otherwise, so does the way you're not putting weight on it. I've been around enough overloaded coolant lines to know when something's about to rupture. She tilted her head, ears twitching slightly. That is not a flattering comparison. Well, you're prettier than a coolant line, I'll give you that, Elias said, and immediately regretted it. Another long blink. I have been informed that humans use humor in situations of stress. You could say I'm practically a walking stress response. She exhaled softly, maybe the faintest echo of a laugh. Maybe not. Hard to tell with aliens who treated emotion like a state secret. Elia stepped forward, setting the scanner aside, and knelt beside her injured leg. I used to do massage therapy back on Earth, he lied, placing his hand lightly above her ankle. It helps with circulation. Unless your people's legs are full of antimatter or something, then this is a terrible idea. No antimatter, she said after a moment, but Calorian nerve clusters are more reactive than humans, especially in the lower limbs. Elias paused. Are you saying I might accidentally trigger a spasm? Worse, she said very seriously. You might elicit a physiological response equivalent to a courtship initiation. He stared at her, hand frozen in midair. Okay, so maybe don't touch the leg. But then she didn't move. Didn't stop him, didn't pull away, just watched, almost like she was waiting. His hand lowered gently, fingertips grazing the brace, feeling the strange duality of Calorian musculature, denser than human, almost warm and cool at the same time. The skin shimmered faintly, pulsing like veins of light beneath the surface. Her ears twitched once sharply. She inhaled. Pressure is acceptable, she said. Not how most people describe my presence, Elias muttered. He began to massage slowly, fingers working in light circles just above the injury. Her eyes drifted shut. The air grew still. Something about the moment felt, not wrong but charged. Like walking into a room where two magnets are pointed the wrong way. Loop, who had remained quiet this entire time, suddenly chirped. Warning, this interaction has surpassed the threshold of acceptable cross-cultural proximity. Recommend ceasing tactile engagement to avoid diplomatic entanglement. Elias ignored it. Sierra, because that's what her name tag read, was breathing deeper now. Not in pain, something else. Your name is Sierra, right? He said softly. Yes. Elias Ward, Earth, possibly about to be deported. Her eyes opened, glimmering. You have initiated a bond trial, Elias Ward. He blinked, like metaphorically. No, there was a long silence. Is that bad? Sierra tilted her head slightly. For you, unclear. For me, intriguing. Loop chimed again. Diplomatic incident likelihood, 72% and rising. Elias stared at her glowing ears, her calm, unreadable face. He removed his hand from her leg as gently as he'd placed it. Well, good news, he said. I'm pretty sure my insurance covers cultural misunderstandings. She smiled, just a little. The next morning began with an alert siren, a spilled mug of synth coffee, and Elias Ward's face in a bowl of protein flakes. Time since last personal disaster, 6 hours, 42 minutes, Loop chirped. Reset the clock, Elias mumbled, fishing the flakes out of his nostrils. I'm about to break a new record. He shoved himself upright and wiped his face with the sleeve of his wrinkled jumpsuit. The ship's lighting had shifted to morning cycle, casting a pale blue sheen across his cabin's metal walls. The console by the bed was blinking. Not red alert blinking, but definitely, you've done something wrong and people know about it blinking. Please tell me that's just an overdue maintenance reminder, he said. Loop hovered silently toward the console and pinged it open. Official summons, Cross-Diplomatic Council, Joint Hearing. Topic, Interpersonal Initiation Event. Secondary topic, Human Calorian Bond Trial Violation. Elias squinted. Bond trial, right. That thing I totally knew I was doing. You massaged her leg. I massaged her injury, Elias corrected, pulling on a sock that had developed a mysterious hole. There was pain, I was helping. It was medically justified, probably. Loop hovered ominously. She warned you it was a culturally significant act. She also said it was intriguing. You are not intriguing, Elias. You are statistically anomalous. Elias sighed and slapped the panel shut. Fine, I'll go to the hearing, I'll explain the situation. I'll tell them I'm a well-meaning idiot, which happens to be true. They already know. Comforting. He left his cabin, made it 3 steps down the corridor, and collided shoulder first with a Kalorian security officer who looked like he could bench press a shuttlecraft. The man didn't budge. Elias, on the other hand, rebounded off the bulkhead like a ping-pong ball. "Elias Ward," the officer intoned. "Yes," Elias answered, rubbing his shoulder and praying that being flattened wasn't part of Kalorian justice. "You are required in the liaison chamber. Now." "Great. Love meetings before breakfast." They escorted him, politely, but with that special kind of politeness that says, "We are smiling so we don't have to sedate you." The chamber was near the heart of the ship, a high-domed space with holographic banners rotating through symbols of Earth and Kalora. A circular table sat in the center, already surrounded by two very serious-looking delegations. And then there was Sierra. She stood to one side, posture perfect, hands clasped behind her back, silver hair in a tighter braid than the night before. Her face was unreadable. But when Elias caught her eye, he swore her ears twitched, just once. Ambassador Harlan of Earth, a man with the emotional warmth of dry toast, turned to him with the heavy sigh of someone who'd already been briefed on too much. "Mr. Ward," Harlan said, "do you know why you're here? I assumed it was either this or someone finally noticed I stole extra ration bars last week. Did you?" "No." The Kalorian ambassador, whose name was something unpronounceable involving multiple glottal stops, leaned forward. "Your physical contact with Captain Sierra Valen has triggered a preliminary bond protocol under Kalorian law. We are here to assess the potential ramifications." Elias looked at Sierra again. She didn't move. "So, just to clarify," Elias said, "me trying to help her avoid a sprained leg is now considered a romantic overture." "A sacred initiation of mutual vulnerability," the ambassador said. "Right," Elias muttered. "That's exactly what I meant." Ambassador Harlan pinched the bridge of his nose. "Mr. Ward, Kalorian rituals are delicate, ceremonial, and deeply binding. They are not to be trifled with." "I wasn't trifling," Elias exclaimed. "I didn't even know what trifling asterisk was until this moment, but I'm very sure I wasn't doing it." The Kalorian ambassador raised a hand. "The bond has begun. It must be respected or formally dissolved through ritual." Elias turned to Sierra. "Do you want to dissolve it?" She stared at him for a long moment. "No." That one word landed heavier than any announcement in the room. "Well," Elias said, clearing his throat, "I guess that settles that." The Earth delegation looked like they had just watched someone throw a petri dish into a volcano. The Kalorians murmured among themselves in their musical, buzzing tongue. The ambassador finally nodded. "Then the trial proceeds. Stage 1 shall be observed immediately." Elias blinked. "Stage 1 of what?" Sierra turned to him at last. "Empathic alignment via discomfort simulation." "That sounds extremely non-fun." "It is," she said, "but you may survive." "Great." Again, very comforting. 3 hours later, Elias was standing in a zero-G simulator with a pair of neural feedback gloves, a nausea patch stuck behind his ear, and a helmet that smelled like someone else's stress. Across from him, Sierra floated in the same gear, calm as a statue. Between them, a drone projected a slowly rotating hologram of a massive squid-shaped entity with the instruction, "Negotiate passage with hostile space Leviathan." No spoken language allowed. Elias groaned. "This is your idea of a bonding experience?" Sierra raised an eyebrow. "Kalorians believe in shared adversity." Elias raised a hand. "Can we define adversity? Because I think the helmet's trying to eat my ear." The drone beeped and the Leviathan surged forward in the sim, glowing eyes narrowing. Elias panicked and waved both hands in what he hoped was a universal sign of friendliness. The Leviathan responded by baring rows of teeth. "Okay, great start." Sierra extended her arms in a precise pattern, fingers curling in elegant movements. The Leviathan paused. Elias tried to copy her, only to accidentally send a signal that made it thrash angrily and fire a blast of simulated plasma that knocked him into a wall. Sierra floated to him, calm, graceful, and totally infuriating. Your gestures implied territorial insult. Why would I know the difference between hello and this planet is mine now in squid? You used both hands. I asterisk have two hands. Then learn to use them better. He groaned. If I survive this ritual, I'm demanding a foot massage. Sierra's lips twitched, barely. Only if you pass stage 2. Elias slumped in midair. This is going to be a long courtship, isn't it? Likely. He looked at her, floating with serene ease in the weightless chamber, ears glowing faintly as the Leviathan reset for another round. Worth it, he muttered. By the third day, Elias was convinced that Kalorian culture was an elaborate prank designed by very elegant aliens with too much time and not enough hobbies. Explain to me again, he said, ducking as a robotic arm whizzed past his head, why emotional bonding requires death traps. It is not a death trap, Sierra replied, balancing with annoying precision on a narrow beam suspended over a simulated lava lake. It is a trust scaffolding. You must cross it blindfolded while I direct you, to prove your willingness to follow. I'm very willing to follow, Elias muttered, adjusting the synth blindfold over his eyes. Especially if it leads to a cafeteria. You complained last night that cafeteria food tasted like textured glue from a depressed printer. That was before I knew emotional trials came with molten doom. Sierra's voice echoed through the comlink. Step forward, slowly. Elias raised his foot and tapped it onto the beam, wobbly, definitely not regulation, definitely made by someone who hated joints and ligaments. Okay, he said. Now what? Shift your weight, extend arms for balance, think like a dancer. I once fell off a treadmill while standing still. That explains much. He began inching forward, 1 step, 2 steps. The beam swayed gently and something in the simulation growled. Either the program's attempt to simulate magma acoustics or Elia's stomach rebelling against lunch. Either way, it felt ominous. Am I halfway? You are 9. 2% across. Fantastic. I'll just go ahead and file my will now. You're doing well. I'm sweating in places I didn't know had sweat glands. Humans are noted for their inefficient perspiration system. You're not helping. A moment of silence, then a gentle laugh in his earpiece. Not mockery, actual amusement. Elias froze mid-step. Was that a joke? Did I just amuse? The lights went out at precisely 300. Elias sat bolt upright in bed, heart thumping, blanket tangled around his legs like a net spun by a mischievous octopus. Loop, he whispered. No response. Loop, if you're trying to prank me, I swear I will reprogram your sarcasm subroutines into bad poetry. Still nothing. The emergency lighting flickered on, casting his quarters in a deep red hue that immediately triggered his fight-or-flight instincts. Unfortunately, both were currently trapped under the blanket. He fought his way free and stumbled to the console. Dead. The comms panel also dead. That could only mean one thing. Well, he muttered, either the ship has been hacked or someone finally unplugged me from life support out of mercy. Then the wall screen lit up, one line blinking slowly, containment breach, section C4. Intraship lockdown engaged. He stared at it for a full 5 seconds before muttering, of course it's section C4. That's where the snack dispensers are. The door to his cabin hissed open manually, an oddity in itself. Standing there was Sierra, armored from neck to boots, a slender plasma-forged blade hanging from her back and a small device blinking faintly on her wrist. You're not supposed to be here, Elias said, gesturing around wildly. This is a very delicate and disorganized mess of socks and unfiled complaints. There's been a breach, she said. Kalorian Command believes it to be sabotage. By whom? Unclear, possibly internal, possibly external. So, we don't know who, we don't know why, but we do know that the lights are off and someone's trying to break something. Correct. Well, I feel incredibly reassured. She handed him a small device, shaped like a tuning fork crossed with a spanner. Field beacon, stay close. You'll be invisible to ship tracking for 20 minutes. That's not worrying at all, asterisk. She moved quickly down the hallway, and Elias hurried to keep up, clutching the beacon like a very confused space tourist trying to hold onto his passport. They reached a narrow maintenance duct, and Sierra began unscrewing the panel with practiced ease. "Let me guess," Elias said. "We're going to crawl through a dark, cramped tunnel to reach the most dangerous part of the ship without backup, guidance, or snacks." She nodded. "You learn quickly." He sighed and ducked into the duct behind her, instantly regretting the burrito he'd eaten 3 hours ago. After 10 minutes of awkward shuffling, bruised knees, and Elias accidentally elbowing a power conduit that gave him a mild zap and a brief existential crisis, they reached the access hatch above the neural core. Sierra checked her scanner. Energy surge detected. The primary AI is being manually overridden. Elias blinked. "Wait, someone's hacking the ship's brain. That's not easy, or legal, or survivable." "They are using Calorian encryption methods," she said. "Someone with inside knowledge." Elias frowned. "That narrows it down. I mean, unless you've been uploading ship schematics to your fan club." She ignored that and dropped into the maintenance well with cat-like grace. Elias followed, landing with a grunt and immediately tripping over a coil of data cables. They moved through the neural hub in silence. The walls pulsed faintly, organic tech layered over crystalline arrays, the kind of system that looked more like a nervous system than a computer. Then a shadow moved. Elias tensed. "That's either a saboteur or a maintenance drone that really wants to scare me." Sierra drew her blade. The figure turned. Not a Calorian, not human either. The features were obscured by a shimmering field, a cloaking distortion flickering in and out. Elias whispered, "That's not a Calorian infiltrator." "No," Sierra said quietly, "that's a mimetic." He paled. "Mimetics haven't been seen in decades. They don't usually announce themselves." The mimetic turned fully now, revealing a semi-transparent body with shifting features, part organic, part tech. It spoke in a chorus of mismatched voices. "Union protocols violated. Assimilation necessary." Sierra stepped forward. "You're interfacing with a diplomatic vessel. You are in breach of treaty laws." The mimetic's hand shifted into a weapon, some kind of plasma lance, humming with lethal intent. "Diplomacy is obsolete." Elias muttered, "Okay, now I'm obsolete." The fight was fast, blinding. Sierra moved like a flicker, blade catching the weapon just before it fired. Sparks exploded in all directions. Elias dove behind a console, trying very hard not to get incinerated or accidentally bond with any more aliens during the chaos. He pulled out the beacon again, flipped it to a different setting, one he wasn't supposed to know about. A low-pulse EMP burst rippled out, just enough to destabilize cloaking tech. The mimetic shimmered violently. Sierra took the opening and struck, blade finding a soft spot near its shoulder. It screamed in 5 voices and collapsed, flickering out of existence in a burst of static. Elias peeked out. "Did we win?" "For now. I would like that carved on my tombstone." Sierra helped him up. "They'll send more." "I figured. These things always escalate. First the lights flicker, then the memory chairs try to kill you, and suddenly you're knee-deep in shapeshifters. Your resilience is improving. I call it fear. It just sounds better when you say it." They made their way back to the upper levels, triggering the emergency reboot along the way. The ship systems began to return, one panel at a time. By the time they reached the safe zone, the diplomatic channel was already buzzing. Ambassador Harlan appeared on a holoscreen, looking even more sleep-deprived than usual. "Ward, Valen, what in the black depths just happened?" Elias looked at Sierra. She nodded slightly. "Short version," Elias said. "Alien shapeshifter tried to hijack the ship's brain. We stopped it. Also, I may have reconfigured a neural spike array without authorization." Harlan blinked. "Why?" "To not die." "Acceptable." Sierra stepped forward. "This was not random. The mimetic targeted the Bond trial. That is not coincidence." Harlan looked skeptical. "You think they're trying to sabotage human-Calorian unity?" They always attack where connection is forming, she said. Elias added, which means we're doing something right. The ambassador sighed. Which means you're both now under observation until further notice. Great, Elias muttered. Stage 4 with babysitters. Sierra looked at him. Stage 4 is not external, she said. It is internal. He stared, as in emotional. She nodded. No tunnels, no death beams, no simulated squid. Just you and me. Elias sat down slowly. Well, he said. That might actually be worse. She smiled. Elias stood at the edge of the observation deck with a cup of what might have once been coffee. The stars looked the same as they always did, quiet, glittering, impossible, but something in his chest was different. Probably heartburn, possibly feelings. Loop floated behind him, beeping softly. You've been quiet for 6 minutes. This is statistically abnormal. Should I scan for brain activity? Don't you dare. You're experiencing reflective melancholy, aren't you? I'm experiencing indigestion and a mild identity crisis. Same difference. Sierra arrived without fanfare, as she always did. One moment she wasn't there. The next she was standing beside him with that calm, unreadable presence that still made his left eye twitch. I was told you declined your debriefing, she said. I was told it involved 4 hours of psych evaluations and a memory review of the time I fell into a replicator. So yes, I declined. You are difficult. I've been called worse, mostly by you. Sierra tilted her head slightly, ears twitching. Stage 5 is optional. Elias sipped his coffee and winced. If you're telling me it involves another simulation, I'll fake my own death. I've done it before. Poorly, but with commitment. No simulation, she said. Stage 5 is the declaration of intent. He paused, intent to remain. Elias turned to face her. You mean officially continue this, us? Yes. He looked at his reflection in the window. Same scruffy hair, same crooked grin, same man who 10 days ago thought touching a leg was just touching a leg and not the interstellar equivalent of proposing under a starlit waterfall. Look, he said,